Hi everyone, welcome to Edge of Wonder. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you who has supported us on our edgeofwonder.tv platform. Seriously, we could not be doing what we're doing without all of your support since YouTube now completely demonetized us. We would honestly have to shut everything down since they're not giving us anything anymore. So we seriously thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And because of all your contributions and support, we're able to bring on more people to our EOW family, such as Peter Maxwell Slattery, who has his series Ascension Teachings only on our EOW.tv platform. And in this episode that you're about to see, he interviews remote viewer John Vivanco, who has an amazing story himself, and they're going to be talking about how to remote view and what remote viewing is. Peter and I have developed a very personal relationship, and honestly, he's just got a really big heart and wants to get the truth out there, and we're so happy that he agreed to join our platform on Edge of Wonder. So without further ado, you guys, here is Peter Maxwell Slattery's Ascension Teachings with John Vivanco, only on our edgeofwonder.tv with a special preview here on YouTube.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ascension Teachings. I'm your host Peter Maxwell Slattery, and today we've got John Vivanco, who's a professional remote viewer of 20 years with us. So John, thank you for being on, mate.
I appreciate it.
So do you want to just give everyone just a brief overview of how you got into remote viewing, and then I want to go into some of the capabilities and things that we as humans can do that seem, I guess, paranormal, but you know, with what you've done, it shows that there's a high percentage of being accurate with what we can do with our ESP, I guess, abilities.
Right.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, remote viewing for me is an inner journey as opposed to an outer one. I mean, with remote viewing, we get information on things that are seemingly outside, but it's actually happening inside of us. And there is this connection that you make internally, and begin to realize that the only way that you can actually remote view is through yourself, and that means you are one with whatever you view. So my background though comes from Zen. Ultimately, you know, I spent about 6 years or so living in a Zen center when I was doing remote viewing, when I was actually working in a think tank. I was able to do that. I was able to live at a Zen center.
And you were remote viewing at the same time,
remote view
professionally.
And professionally at the same time, because this was a lay center. It's what we call a lay Zen center. And a type of Zen center like that has people coming and going from the outside.
Cool.
So I was living there,
yeah,
and I was taking care of the place, and I was meditating all the time, and doing remote viewing, running a think tank. Previous to that, how I got into it was like 1995, right? You've got the CIA declassifying remote viewing, and I saw this Ted Koppel. He's this Nightline television special in the United States. I saw him outing remote viewing at this time, and I'm like, what? Wait, what is this? It's like they're billing it as a technology, right? In order to know information on anything that you can't see or feel or touch with your five senses. And so it was like this metal plate in my head heating up, like, I gotta learn this. So I got obsessed.
That urge.
Yeah, absolutely obsessed. I was an art student at that time. You know, I was going to school. I was a fine artist. I've got a degree in fine art, and it totally just melded with being creative. Right, it's this other creative process for me. And what happened was you know, it was like the internet at that time. There wasn't a lot going on, but there were people, there were forums, and they were talking about this. And there were people who had already been trained, and some ex-military guys who were just putting information out on how to do it. So I cobbled together from various sources really rudimentary understanding of it and started practicing it. And it worked, right? It totally worked. You know, I remember the first objective that I ever viewed was Tiananmen Square, one of those. It was like a military situation, right? And I described the tank, I described people, and I was floored. I was like, how does this work, right? This is crazy. So after that, I received training. Now, I did not go to any ex-military to get trained because I just didn't trust that. I didn't trust that side. So I went with a person named Prudence Calabrese. So she trained me. She was out of the Farsight Institute.
Yep.
And after that, I realized, I had some kind of ability to do it. It's like with remote viewing, anybody can learn it, but not everybody can play in the orchestra. It's like you some people have that instrumentation, and some people don't, but they can still do it. And one of the reasons why I got pulled in so fast into a think tank after that was because my fine art background. So in fine art, it's like all you're doing is describing how light falls on a surface. So it's very like this 1-to-1 ratio of like.
So that's probably why you're so great at describing in depth, because you're doing it in a way that you're going from, I guess, even though like light, we think it works linear, but you're describing it in shades, ways it affects things, and then you're able to articulate that.
Very detailed, also very physical.
Yeah.
So not everybody remote views in a very physical way. And I found out that people who remote view in a physical way are sought after to a certain degree. Some people will describe things through all this concept and metaphor. I mean, you think about our daily lives. We live in a world of metaphors and concepts in our brain about things as opposed to what those things really are, right? So for me, that's how I describe things, what things really are. And then that, coupled with my Zen training, it just takes you to a place where you're with it as opposed to interpreting it, right? Okay, so with remote viewing in general, this is how it works with people when they first learn it. It worked with me as well. Yeah. So when you first start out with remote viewing, and if you've never done it before, you're at this very high level and getting very accurate stuff, right? And that's because your conscious mind can't grapple with this, and it doesn't get in the way, right? So you're open, and so you're amazed at what you can do. And then what happens is that drops, right?
Yeah.
So that drops, and all of a sudden, you're going, wow, I'm horrible at this. Why am I so bad at this? I can't believe it. I'm going to stop doing it. So that's the part where you actually start to learn. If you keep going and you keep plugging away at it, then you slowly go back up. But it takes a lot more time because you have to realize that remote viewing itself is you are literally battling with your idea about what you're sensing and feeling as opposed to just sensing and feeling. And that's where a lot of people get hung up. So for me, it was a lot like that, where it was like, it didn't get really good for me until I went through that whole process and started to come back up. Zen really helped because it was this situation where, okay, so I'm living at a Zen center and I'm thinking, I just need to be monastic and cut all the world out, everything that I'm doing, and just be in meditation, right? All the time. And the teacher, the Roshi we call, a person who's the teacher of the Zen Center, she said to me one day, she said, John, in order to be the best remote viewer you can be, you've got to let go of every single shred of yourself. And only then are you going to truly see what's there. And that to me was this moment where it was everything coalesced, where it was like, wow, I am that which I view, because when I empty myself, the experience of what I'm viewing is actually me, right? And that's when it really got amazing and really good for me in remote viewing. And so that's what I teach, right? So I've been teaching this for over 20 years as well. And every single student that I work with, I run them through a slightly different remote viewing, I'd say idea. I mean, our methodologies are still very much tied to what the military developed, but I jump outside of that and teach people how to let go of their ideas and thoughts, because it's not something that they teach normally within the military remote viewing method. It's built into the methodology itself to let go of what you're thinking, but if you take a person to another place inside of themselves where they can feel things getting out of their head and train them that way first, then it makes the whole remote viewing process more accurate, and students go through that process a lot faster, where they start off great, drop, and then get great again in a more condensed period of time. So remote viewing shifted from the methodology that mostly train these days into a methodology that involved and included the body. And that's the point that I and my teammates really started working on, was to develop the body skills. And that makes it much, much more clear because you get out of the brain, right? You get out of this interpretive process that we're so addicted to, right? And just go into plain sensation. And don't worry about having to interpret it, right? We just let it flow, let it be what it is, write it down, and move on, letting go of any ideas. And see, this is where it gets very Zen, right?
Yeah.
It's like, in remote viewing, if you have an idea about what you think it is, a high level concept, oh, well, this is like, I think this is the Hindenburg disaster. It's like because of, something silvery, something expanding, like gaseous and red and orange, and I'm feeling heat. So those are basic descriptors, and we stay in that zone with remote viewing. But what happens is that our brain will make quick interpretations and go, oh, it's probably the Hindenburg disaster. You never rely on that stuff.
Yeah.
So you dump it, you let go of it. So it's this continual process of getting this basic information and then trying not to come to conclusions, but it happens so fast you can't stop it, and you just drop it off to the side. But a lot of people, especially when they're learning, get stuck in that zone of what they think it is. And then they start building off this imaginary, we call it analytic overlay, imaginary thing that they're getting, which is 99.9% wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so what the body does, so when you get into that zone of thinking you know what it is, when you go and just feel the sensations happening in your body, just going down inside, then you begin to release. You begin to release the ideas. And that's the process of it. And it's a very Zen-like process, because when you're sitting on the cushion, you're in the process of letting go of yourself, right? You're who you think you are, why you're even sitting there on the cushion, even if you're being pissed off sitting on the cushion, I want to do other things, this and that. You're continually in a process of letting go so you can truly see what's there inside of yourself and reach enlightenment or whatever your goal is. You even have to let go of enlightenment in order to reach enlightenment. And so remote viewing is the same thing. It's exactly the same practice.
What's some of the stuff that I guess is shown super abilities that we've got and stuff that you've seen from otherworldly beings? Like what's, some of the weird and wonderful things you've seen and experienced?
Man, now this is where it gets really interesting. So I was the first viewer in on these lights. And when I was viewing it, I was blind. I mean, we always work blind. I never know what I'm going to view beforehand. I just go through the methodology that I know. And I was getting these alien beings, right? I was like, they were in these sort of pod things, and they were coming through the atmosphere, getting really hot, and hitting this like jungle floor and like embedding into the ground. And there was also these spirals happening in the sky, and these things were like they were like three-dimensional. They can move themselves into 3 dimensions, but they were mostly existing in a fourth dimensional zone, right? And when I was doing the session, I was getting this sensation like, they're coming. I just kept writing over and over again, they're coming, they're here. And I'm going, oh man, these things are seeing me. They're like starting to interact with me in the session. And like their consciousness was focused at me, and they had a very acerbic intelligence to them. And I'm like, well, man, this is getting weird. So I just pulled back from the session, and I'm thinking, these things might come visit me, right? So it's not like that long after I'm at my house, and I'm living in Orange County, California at that time, and I got really tired one night, and then I see this sort of like explosion of lights in the hallway, these flashes. I'm like, I don't really care. I just want to go to sleep. So I pass out, and I'm asleep. It's like literally almost right after I go to sleep. All of a sudden I'm in this weird, super lucid dreamlike state. And I'm in this space capsule outside of our atmosphere, and I'm stuck there. And I'm like, how do I get out of this situation? It's like this sort of like old, like wired up with these big like analog buttons space capsule. And I'm like, I've got to like communicate with my remote viewers through telepathy on the ground to call for help for me to get me out of the situation. So as I am like in this situation and trying to telepathically connect with my viewers that I need help, I see and hear in my head, we're here and we're here to help. I didn't even have to connect with my viewers in this sort of like huge bubble, this is crazy stuff, bubblegum like brain type thing. It's like, it looks like bubblegum, some chewed up wad of bubblegum is coming towards me and floating like, and at that moment I'm feeling like on my shoulder, like physically, like as I'm laying there in bed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I wake up, I sit up.
And what was there?
And there's this, so there's this thing. It's about this tall. It's got a head shaped like that, right? It looked like, like a hammerhead shark.
Yeah. Okay? Yeah.
Right. So it looks like this. It's about that big. It's got like two little eyes on either end of this head. And it's got this sort of like translucent nose. It's all brown. It's like kind of mottled, like light brown to dark brown. And underneath the football, right, there's all these bumps. It's like all weird and bumpy. And then below that, it didn't have like arms and legs like we do. It was like this spindly, almost tentacle-y type thing that went to the ground. And I'm sitting there and I'm starting to freak out. Like I'm backing up into the corner on my bed and I'm starting to like,
like, what is this? Yeah, what's going on?
And as I'm doing that, it shoots into my head. It says, stop what you're doing. It's like you're throwing bricks at me. This emotional reaction.
Your reaction,
was like
freaking, like
hurting it.
Yeah.
And so I calmed down and it said, we're from the signal. We're here to help you and we want you to help us. So
what was the signal?
The signal was what we called the project, because what we found out was that these things were coming from an area in the universe that is composed of like dark matter, and it is beginning to collapse. So these things launched themselves out of the area through a signal, like a radio signal.
Yeah, all right, I get that. And that's how they've come into our frequency?
That's how they came into our frequency. Okay, so these things came through a signal. Arecibo radio telescope picked up on this signal, and they it's like they're fourth dimensional but three dimensional, right? So they were able to travel through something physical, and yet not be physical at the same time, because the signal is not this physical thing.
They've gone non-physical to travel, but then they pop out and they're physical.
But they still also have the non-physical aspect. So even though this thing showed up like that, like as this physical thing, when it left, it just exploded into sparks, right? And then after that, so I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I really don't. I mean, I know they're from that project we did, and I don't like know if I really want to connect with them. I'm feeling a little nervous about it all. Well, then it happens to another viewer on the team, right? So then I'm like, okay, well, we have something
going on,
right? So at that point, I started connecting with them.
Did it articulate to you or communicate how or why it thought you could help it?
Yeah. Okay. And this was nuts. I thought it was absolutely nuts at the beginning here. They would show up as mostly blue lights floating around. I see blue sparks and stuff like that normally, but these guys, I mean, it would be a ball like, that big to that big.
So when you were seeing them as like a blue, like a blue orb, were you seeing them manifest from that into something else, or did you know, or they didn't and you knew that was them?
I knew it was them because it wasn't just the light. It was like, you can feel
the energy.
Yeah, you can feel the energy, and They like wanted to connect, and they're kind of laughing and happy. Right?
Yeah.
So as individuals, which is really interesting with these guys. So I started calling them the football heads at first, but they didn't like it. Or the sideways football heads. They didn't like that. So they communicated, and what they would communicate in pictures, right? They showed me these fireflies that were turning on, turning off, all at the same time. Not like one there, one there, one there, like all on, all off. And they gave me the feeling of danger, danger, like death, death, death. And I'm like, fireflies? They're like asking me to help. They're saying, we need help, and showing me these fireflies. I'm like, the fireflies? Fireflies are in danger?
Yeah.
Jimmy fell in the well? It's like
you're
what?
trying to interpret what they're trying to tell you.
I'm like, this can't be. It's like fireflies are everywhere, right? And they can't be in danger. So I did some research, and I found these fireflies in Malaysia, Pteroptyx tenor is their scientific name, that were being decimated by chemicals in the environment, as well as a dam being built upstream, human activities, right? And they were excited. They were like, because they just communicate by pictures and feelings.
And that was a hit on your end going,
yeah, and they're like
getting somewhere.
Yeah, that's what they wanted help with. They wanted help with. And then they gave me this impression that we didn't come here for you or people. We want nothing to do with people. We came for them. We came for them. And so we started working on this project, how to save these fireflies, because that's what they wanted. And so I started calling them the firefly aliens. So what we found out was that where they're from, where they live, this part of the universe is disintegrating. And the reason why it's disintegrating is because these fireflies here on Earth are distant genetic cousins. And what happens to them? There are only two locations where these fireflies exist, one in Malaysia and one in the Amazon. Oh. And they are being decimated. They were being decimated. They came there so they can try to save themselves through these fireflies, because as they're being destroyed, their civilization is falling apart. Like their whole
There's a symbiotic
world,
connection between them.
They are them in the past.
Almost like how we hear about some of the greys trying to rectify what happens to humans.
Totally.
Yeah, but it's just another example.
Exactly.
Yeah, another circumstance.
Right. So these beings were trying to save themselves in their world, and when they came, it was like, we're so egotistical as humans about, aliens, of course they're here for us because we're the only great thing here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, man, that is not true at all.
There's so many different types of life forms and agendas and things going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So we ran through this whole process of trying to understand it, how we could save the habitat so they could thrive. And it was this documentary, that we had to do on it. But, at that point, we weren't really involved in Hollywood. And we knew some people, but nobody was interested in, how to save some fireflies. They didn't care about that. So at that point, I started working on a methodology called the Environmental Healing Protocol, where we take viewers. It's based off of just remote healing methods, except for environments specifically. So we started working with that and moving energy into that. And it's cause versus correlation versus cause. You don't know ultimately the reason for something happening later on when you do this method. It could be you, it might not be you. But the situation changed. So the dam got decommissioned. The local population came in and started cleaning things up.
And that was the threat to them, was the dam.
It was the dam.
Interesting.
Because in a special kind of tree, barabang tree, something like that.
I've heard of that. I think I know what you're talking about.
They need a very balanced combination of salt water coming in and fresh water going out in order to survive, and that's where they live. And that was being totally screwed up, especially with the dam. The dam was an absolute nightmare.
And this was for the Malaysian faction?
Yeah. The Malaysian. Now the Amazon, they're doing fine.
Right?
But it was those specifically that they were concerned about. So over the years, people started coming together. When you do remote healing or methodologies, things happen in a weird magical way. And you can't find the exact connection, but it brings energy to a situation for resolution in the way that it needs to be resolved, as opposed to an idea that you have about it being resolved.
Interesting. Is there anything, even with like a healing technique or something through remote viewing, even with what you were describing, even for the environment, is there anything you can give people to, even a way that they could help themselves or their environment, just a quick technique or a thought idea with being able to do something?
The biggest problem with healing is that we think we know how somebody should be healed. So the first thing you have to do is let go of your ideas about them being healed. And then you could focus on the energy that they need for whatever healing they need. Because death even is a healing. And as humans, we don't want somebody to die, right? But that's a judgment we make, and it might be their healing to die. So you have to let go of all your conceptions first, and that's a process in and of itself. And I would suggest this for anybody who is beginning remote viewing, is to do a lot of meditation, because it is a process of learning how to let go ultimately. And that can be your anchor. You want to learn remote viewing. It's so easy. It's really easy. All you have to do is type in on a search engine on the internet, remote viewing targets, and you'll get an 8-digit number or a 4-digit number. All you need to do is take that number, write it down, and do a very fast squiggle. Then start feeling the squiggle. Start probing it with your pen and writing down very basic sensations that you're having, or quick things that are coming to you on what that squiggle represents.
Cool.
And that's an excellent way to begin the practice of it.
Definitely. No, that's a good tip. Really good tip. Well, thank you for watching this episode, John. Thanks for joining us, and keep an eye out for the next episode. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Peter Maxwell Slattery's Ascension Teachings exclusively on Edge of Wonder. You can check out Peter's along with all of our other content creators who have their own series exclusively on edgeofwonder.tv. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting our edgeofwonder.tv, because honestly, we could not be doing what we're doing anymore because of the censorship. So because of your support, we're able to kick them in the cabals, all right? So thank you guys, we love you, and we'll see you guys out on the edge.
Ascension and awakening, remote viewing, and ET contact. Who are some of the beings that inhabit this universe with us? And what kind of role do they play? Ambivalent or benevolent? Is their motivation of the light or of darkness? Are they here to assist our awakening or to deter us from it? And why have they revealed themselves to only certain people? And most importantly, can we trust them? Get ready for Ascension Teachings Season 2, out now. Only on edgeofwonder.tv.